Hey everybody, today is March 24th, and today's card of the day is Quake. Quake is an ally from the Black Widow hero pack. She has 2 cost, 1 thwart for 1 consequential, 2 attack for 1 consequential, and 2 health, and a really awesome response. The response says, after a minion schemes, exhaust Quake. Arrow, deal 2 damage to that minion. Pretty sweet, and one of the best flavor texts in the game to go with their art. So I will bring this building down around you. That's exactly what it feels like when you're taking down these minions when you're in your most vulnerable state. She has an energy resource and the Avengers and Shield trait, which is actually really important. That Avenger trait will become very important when we get to the combos you can do with Quake. 2 cost allies are always good, right? You can just get 2 damage out of her and take a chump, and 2 cost is basically worth avoiding a villain attack, so pretty good just on her own. But she has this ability to do sustained damage, just like Hawkeye, Kate Bishop that we talked about before. Anytime you can do damage with an ally without that ally taking consequential damage, that's an ally that can sit on your board forever and just work for you. So Quake, definitely a top tier ally. Comes up great with heroes that want to flip, because you're only going to get to use that ability when a minion schemes. And there aren't a lot, I don't even think there are any treachery cards that force a minion to scheme. There's not like a gang up version of scheming. But when you're flipped down and you have lots of minions out, Quake can start pinging some damage onto those minions, mitigating that threat a little bit. The cool thing is that since she's in Justice, that threat that gets placed by the minion isn't that big of a deal for you, because you're going to have a ton of different types of events and abilities and upgrades to deal with that threat. So, let's move on and look at some of the key combos with Quake. So like I said, Quake is really good with flipping heroes, so cards from Ant-Man's pack like Lay Down the Law, after you change form, remove 3 threat from a scheme, 4 if you paid with a mental resource. Since you're going to be in alter ego form to use Quake's ability, threat is going to get placed and you're going to be flipping, so Lay Down the Law is a great card to go in that deck. Likewise, Foiled is a great card to go in, because if the minion's going to scheme, the villain's probably going to scheme too. And those boost cards in that variable scheme that can be added to it can be really painful, right? Rhino schemes for 1, not such a big deal. Rhino schemes for 4, in solo now we're heading for the hills. So Foiled, really good card that goes with Quake. Likewise, I said that just did a spoiler there, sorry about that, said that the villain's going to scheme on you. Well, Concussive Blow is another great way to avoid that scheme. So you can confuse the enemy, flip down, let the minion scheme, wipe out the minion with Quake, and move on. Again, really great with heroes that want to flip. I'm thinking of Miss Marvel. I'm thinking of She-Hulk, heroes that actually want to flip to alter ego. So anyone with a really powerful alter ego ability, like Captain Marvel, right? She can basically get to a hand size of 7 in alter ego form. Amazing use with Quake, because you're going to be encouraged to flip more often, which is going to trigger Quake's ability more often. I mentioned that Avengers trait. The reason that's really, really important with Quake is because there's this awesome 0 cost event from Rise of Red Skull. Exhaust an Avenger character you control to ready another Avenger character you control. So this is great with Quake, because a lot of the heroes, other than Miss Marvel, right, have the Avenger trait in hero form. So if you decide you're going to stay in hero form, it kind of stinks. You're not going to get to use Quake's ability. Well, now you can use Earth's Mightiest Heroes to ready She-Hulk and attack for 6. Right? If you've got one of these in hand and 2 1-2 punches, all of a sudden She-Hulk's attacking for 12 that turn without even flipping down, and that's amazing. So Earth's Mightiest Heroes is probably the cheapest source of ready, and I would argue it makes decks more successful when you build around it, because it forces you to include allies and keep those allies on the board so they can be your oh crud buttons when a big villain attack comes up that was unexpected. Throw that ally in front of it until you're ready to have to defend or finish, or until you're ready to finish off the villain. You can use those allies as like a battery to ready your character or draw cards or whatever you need to do using these cool niche cards. All right, so just some rules goofs with Quake. Not many of them, but I thought I would go over a couple that I've seen people ask and people do before on streams, including myself making these mistakes. So Quake's ability is a response, so it is a response after a minion schemes. That means that minion is going to place threat. You're not going to be able to do something like with Nova, the protection ally. You can pay lightning bolt to deal damage before a minion attacks you, or when a minion or character attacks you. This is going to be after. So whatever scheme value that minion has will be placed on the main scheme, or main scheme, unless you have something like counterintelligence to stop it. Quake does not ready at the end of the villain phase, right? You have to exhaust Quake to use her ability. So remember, you're going to ready everything sort of between the hero and villain phase. It's really, I think, technically at the end of the hero phase. So she's always going to be ready for a minion that's scheming, so you can exhaust her and damage that minion. But if you do that, you're not going to be able to use her to chump if a treachery card comes up that says attack your hero. You're not going to be able to use her for her stats in your next turn. You're not going to be able to use her for Earth's Mightiest Heroes and things like that. So just remember that exhausting is part of Quake's cost. So you're not going to be able to do some of those tricky shenanigans because she's not going to ready at the end of the villain phase, only at the end of the hero phase. So that was today's card of the day. Let me know what you think about Quake as one of the coolest, in my opinion, Justice allies out there.